GlaxoSmithKline, the poppy processing business based at Latrobe. He's a member and past president of the Rotary Club of Devonport North. He's interested in Australian military history and especially researching the history of our own Captain Charles Littler's important role at Anzac Cove during the Gallipoli campaign. Mike has visited sites at Gallipoli, France, Belgium, Vietnam, and walked the Kokoda track in 2010. Now it gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. Mike Doyle to present the Anzac Day address.
Thank you, Ben. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. At 11:30 this morning, just a few moments ago, it was 4:30 a.m. in Turkey, and exactly 100 years since men of the Australian 3rd Brigade landed at a small beach that later became known as Anzac Cove. Included in the landing on the first day were around 500 Tasmanians from the 12th Battalion, including Captain Charles Littler and others from here in Devonport. That first Anzac Day was an important step in defining the independence of the young Australian nation, which had been formed only 14 years earlier by the Federation of the Individual States in 1901. However, it was not the first war that Australians had been involved in. Prior to Federation, the individual states had sent men to South Africa to fight in the Boer War in the 1890s. It was here that the first Victoria Cross was awarded to members of an Australian contingent. 6 VCs were awarded in that campaign, and Tasmanians were the recipients of 2 of these. Those 2 Tasmanians were Trooper Bisdee and Lieutenant Wiley, who were serving with the 1st Tasmanian Imperial Bushmen when they were awarded the Victoria Cross for their valour at Wombat in South Africa on September the 1st, 1900. They were the first Australian-born recipients of a Victoria Cross and started a proud record by Tasmanian service personnel. Only 100 Victoria Crosses have ever been awarded to Australians, and 14 of those have been granted to Tasmanians. This includes the most recent and 100th VC, awarded to Corporal Cameron Baird from Burnie, who was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross for Australia in February last year, following his actions in Afghanistan. Back at Anzac Cove, a stalemate had developed, where the Australian and New Zealand forces were unable to break out of the small area of ground they held. They were hemmed in and were in full view of the Turks, who were holding all the ridges above. During that time, our own Captain Littler had become known as the Duke of Anzac and was in charge of the shipping movements to and from Anzac Cove. This was a very critical role, overseeing the landing of all the essential food and supplies, while ensuring that the sick and wounded were safely evacuated. Although the Anzacs had displayed enormous tenacity, endurance and bravery over 8 gruelling months, a decision was made to evacuate the peninsula. Men were gradually withdrawn and not replaced, while clever ruses were employed to prevent the Turks from realising that the position was gradually being cleared. These included 3 days of the silent stunt where the Anzacs didn't fire, and the use of time delay rifle fire. This ingenuity, tenacity and can-do attitude has become a trademark of Australian military personnel ever since. In late December 1915, after 8 months, the last of the troops were evacuated overnight, with our own Captain Littler from here in Devonport in the last boat to leave. In what was the most successful military evacuation in history, not one life was lost. Our troops then headed to France, where the appalling conditions of the fighting in World War I included exposure to mud, rain, snow, as well as the relentless shelling of the Western Front. Poor food and sanitation were encountered every day, while a wound was often a death sentence, as transport to any medical treatment relied on lengthy and painful journeys via horse-drawn wagons or pure manpower. These were the day-to-day realities of war. When peace was finally declared on the 11th of November 1918, the war to end all wars was over. Unfortunately though, conflicts have continued to arise, challenging the enduring power of the human spirit. Australia has, since that time, fought in many battles in many different lands. Europe, Vietnam, Korea, New Guinea, Iraq, Timor and Afghanistan, just to name a few. The reasons for each conflict and involvement are different, and there is not always a right and a wrong when it comes to warfare. But war is a terrible thing, where people often die in a faraway land, leaving family and friends to mourn them. Over the years, our country has sent hundreds of thousands of men and women overseas, and the enduring human spirit, the support of your mates, and perhaps the Anzac spirit, is often all that allows them to actually get through each day. This cenotaph was unveiled in June 1922, less than 4 years after the end of the First World War, and it shows the 129 names of men from this municipality who died in World War I. Since that time, sadly, many more names and memorials have been added from other conflicts. Included on this cenotaph is the inscription, Littler, C.A. Our Captain Charles Augustus Murray Littler fought in France after leaving Gallipoli and was killed in the battle for Mouquet Farm in September 1916. His body was never found, and his name is inscribed on the Australian National Monument at Villers-Bretonneux in France, where the names are inscribed of the 10,982 Australians who were killed in France and who sadly have no known grave. Like so many others, Charles Littler left all that he knew and loved, and he never returned. A small plaque outlining his role at Gallipoli is located near the car park to the north of the cenotaph. Another person I would like to mention is Charles Bean, who was the official Australian historian in World War I. His reporting of the Australian role in that war played a major role in shaping the nation's view of the actions of the Anzacs and in shaping the emerging view of the new Australian national identity. His vision led to the establishment of the Australian War Memorial in Canberra. His remarkable history of Australia's role in World War I ends with these words: "What these men did, nothing can alter now. The good and the bad, the greatness and smallness of their story will stand. Whatever of glory it contains, nothing now can lessen. It rises as it will always rise, above the mist of ages, a monument to great-hearted men, and for their nation a possession forever. All those who have served our country since that time have contributed to that monument and a part of that possession that we as a nation hold so dearly and so proudly. Today we should remember the bravery and sacrifice of all those who have taken part, wherever and whenever their conflict took place, either overseas or here on our own Australian soil, to defend their country and their beliefs. Let's hope that the human spirit will continue to endure, to allow people to strive for a better world. There is enough poverty, sickness, inequality and misery in the world without the need to wage warfare. Let's hope that individuals and nations everywhere can all strive to find a better way to share this planet without the need to impose views or ideologies that stop others from having basic human rights and opportunities. Bravery takes many forms. Let us all be inspired by the bravery and spirit of the Anzacs and of all those who have followed them. Can we be brave enough, and can we be committed enough to do what is required to make our community and our world a better place for future generations? I'm sure that this is what those brave men and women would have hoped for, lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Thank you very much, Mike.